Alright, we are almost done with Houdini. We just need to set up the Redshift AOVs to start the compositing. So let's dive in. So let's go into the AOV tab, and from here we can click on the plus sign to add an AOV, and you got all this list which are all the different components of your renders. So we're gonna keep one for the diffuse, of course. And in here you can set if you want 16-bit, 32-bit. Usually by default they have some pretty good values, so for most of them you don't have to change them. Then we're gonna add some reflection. Let's add some more AOV, and we're gonna add the refraction, of course. We'll also have the specular lighting. So we'll also have the raw refraction and the refraction filter. So those two guys are basically the same than the refraction, but it's the result of their multiplication. Then we'll have the subsurface, and we're gonna add the subsurface row. The global illumination, and the ambient occlusion. We'll have, of course, the Z depth. So we're gonna try leave them by default, and we'll probably fix some stuff later on. So world position, same deal. And we'll also have the normals. So all these things, world position, normal, bump normal, is more some AOV that will help as a utility channels for the compositing, to do some relight, some masking, camera focus, that kind of jazz. Then let's add the puzzle mat. So this AOV will allow us to generate a mask for our object. So let's set 1 for red, 2 for green, 3 for blue, and set the mode to object ID. Then we can go to our object context. And let's apply an object ID of 1 for the rock base. It's gonna be 2 for the strands. So let's go in the Redshift tab, settings, render, and 2 for the object ID. Now, for the set, it's gonna be 3. We're gonna set the crystal, so that's gonna be the crystal scattering. Let's say 4 for this one, and 5 for the fibers. So I think we are all set. We can go back into the render settings, and we just have 3 ID set. We're gonna call this one puzzle mat A. And we're going to create another one that we'll call puzzle mat B. With 4, 5, 6 in their IDs. And let's check refract IDs. Let's not forget to set to object mode. And we are pretty much all set. So one thing to consider is that you don't need to set every AOVs for all your different scenes all the time. You can just copy paste your Redshift rope and call it from this option. This will extract the different AOVs for you. Then we'll have the AOV processing that allow you to have some deep information into your EXR. Here is a tab for the gamma correction. Let's leave everything automatic. And for renders, I'm gonna crank up a bit the samples just to make sure it's clean. And in IPR, let's uncheck IPR progressive rendering, which will force IPR to use the buckets. And let's render. So this is the current render at 20%. What's pretty great about this render view is that you can always check out the different AOVs so we can see if everything's working fine. This is a puzzle mat A for object IDs. Seems alright. Puzzle mat B. We have, well, that's the bump normal, the position, the Z. So the AO got nothing, we'll have to fix that. Diffuse is fine. GI, well, it's in progress. The SSS, that seems alright. So all of these are fine. We see that the refraction row is more refractive than the normal refraction, so no surprise. Got the reflection, and actually I forgot to add reflection row and reflection filter. Might add that just in case. So that's the beauty. Maybe the fibers thickness is a bit too thin. I might crank up the thickness a little bit. Alright, we're gonna start by fixing the occlusion. So let's go back in the shop network, and for each material we're gonna go and add an ARS color to AOV. We'll plug that between the material and the redshift material, and let's plug an AO into the AOV input 0. Gonna crank up the samples a little bit, and well, usually the store color to AOV you need to provide a name that match with your pass, like AO, but in that case ambient occlusion doesn't need that, and actually it might not work at all if you put something in AOV name 0. So let's leave that. Copy those nodes all across the different shaders. Speeding up a bit this section. And yeah, now they all got some occlusion pointing into the AOV. We're gonna add the reflection row and the reflection filter as well, just in case. So let's go back in OBJ. I wanted to fix the thickness. So inside the general tab, no, thickness, let's increase to 0.003. So we got something a little thicker on those guys. Okay, that's working fine. Let's move on. We're gonna go into the redshift rope again, and let's set the world position. Right now it's set to full. We want a centered sample if we want to have the scene coordinate based on the world position. So then we're gonna set the depth to mean depth and Z normalize so that we got values between 0 and 1. Gonna uncheck the use camera near far plane and manually set my max depth to 40. I think that should be about right. Then if you are doing some 32-bit treatment, you don't necessarily need to set that. You can always regrade the Z in comp. So this is what we get. We got the position that now is centered in the scene. We got the Z with some proper values. It doesn't really matter, but whatever. Then we have the AO. That's working fine. And yeah, I think we are ready to comp.